And in 5, 4, 3, 2, we're live.
Spoiler alert, the Patriots will not win the Super Bowl.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome the star of this week's show, Ben Thompson. How you doing?
I wouldn't say I'm a star, but thank you for the flattery.
Well, I mean, you've done shows like this before, right? You've been on the radio.
I've been on Mid-Pitcher Weekend. I've been on Buffy on the Mic in her final vote. I've been on Alex's show once or twice. I did my own show at Pittsburgh. So I've been on WXPO plenty of times.
Yeah, well, this is not a college radio show, so we are not bound by the no swearing rule, albeit any swearing will be beeped and buzzed.
Did they ever figure out what word the dolphin word was in SpongeBob?
I beg your pardon?
In SpongeBob, have you ever seen the episode? I believe it's called Sailor Mouth. The episode where Patrick and SpongeBob were swearing.
I remember Sailor Mouth, all right.
For those of you who care, the dolphin censor was used on the word mother, and I kept that censor tone for that word on my radio show.
Now, for those of you who were listening to the show last week, I want to point out that last week, the show was rigidly timed, and each segment had its own 5-minute time slot. We're completely ditching last week's subjects on the grounds that this weekend, in light of the Super Bowl, we're talking football.
American football.
Thank you for, at the very least, pronouncing American correctly.
Oh, yeah. I have a joke. Is that a making fun of America quote saying in the group?
Who's, Oh, that's you sending me a message.
Yes, about what? Yes, it's for later.
Okay. So, with that being said, Tom Brady might become a 7-time champion. This is his first Super Bowl without the Patriots. It's his 9th Super Bowl overall.
First Super Bowl in the NFC.
And this is the first Super Bowl ever where one of the competing teams is not going to be going to the Super Bowl. They're going to be staying for the Super Bowl. Because this year, it was Tampa Bay's turn to host the Super Bowl. And as luck would have it, the Buccaneers won the NFC title. Do you remember 3-4 years ago when St. Louis went to the finals for the Super Bowl? I mean, not the Super Bowl, but the championship. That was the year that St. Louis was scheduled to host the Super Bowl, and I distinctly remember we were all watching that game in our college dorm room. You were the guy that lived. You were the next door neighbor, but you were.
I was actually down the hall. I was diagonally across the hall from you, not the next door neighbor.
Well, you were our neighbor. You were watching the game in our room, and Alex and I got into an argument over.
Was that my freshman year?
No, that would have been your sophomore. Oh.
Because my point is...
No, you're right. You're right. Because, you know what? I have my dates mixed up. Because Alex wasn't living with us at that time. He wasn't even...
Yeah, because remember, I hosted most of the parties.
No, he wasn't living with us at that time. It was you, me, Alex, and maybe Eric. I don't remember.
I never met Eric, so Eric wasn't there.
You're right, because Eric always went home on the weekends. But it was a pretty tight match, and St. Louis had everything in it to win the championship, and I think at the very last second they lost the points lead and ended up losing the championship, and so. Well, Alex and I got into an argument over why the Super Bowl was scheduled to be held in St. Louis that year. He said it was because St. Louis was in the South and they always hold the Super Bowl in the South. And he was insistent that was why Patriots Stadium would never hold the hold the Super Bowl because of its location alone. But that's not true. I happen to know.
But also, St. Louis is the Midwest, not the South.
The reality is the Super Bowl has been held up north before, but and the refusal of hosting the Super Bowl is not limited.
That was the year the Patriots beat the Falcons, came back and beat the Falcons, right?
Yes, it was. But that was also the year that... I'm going to have to edit that out now because I drew a complete blank. But that was also the year... But that was the year that St. Louis held the Super Bowl, and Alex and I got into an argument over why it was being held in St. Louis and why it would never be held in New England, because Alex thinks that they hold the Super Bowl in the South based on climate alone, but that's not true. Any city, South or otherwise, must meet specific criteria to host the Super Bowl. And these criteria are based on the venue, not the city itself. And I'm looking at a leaked document that explains what the criteria are.
Yeah, that year the game was in Houston, the Super Bowl.
So these are the rules that any city needs to have the Super Bowl. The host stadium must be in a market that hosts an NFL team and must have a minimum of 70,000 seats. Okay, already New England's got a disadvantage because Patriots Stadium has about 67,000 seats. That's 3,000 seats short. With the media and electrical amenities necessary to produce the Super Bowl. So, television production. Okay, probably New England could do that.
Hold on, Josh. What, can you just wait a minute?
Yeah.
The Super Bowl was not held in St. Louis that year. It was held in Houston.
2018 was Minneapolis, so it was one of... Okay, so it would have... So one of those years...
Hold on.
Okay, so it would have been... Maybe it was the Vikings that lost the championship then.
Yeah, it was definitely... It wasn't St. Louis.
Okay, so Alex and I were rooming together then, but it was... I'm sorry, I got my cities mixed up. So...
You definitely got something wrong there.
Something's wrong. Well, anyway, Alex said that it would... Well, Alex and I got into some kind of argument over why it was being held in Minneapolis that year, and or why versus why it's not being held in St. Louis. And he was complaining that the NFL is always held in the South. And it's all coming back to me now. He was complaining that they were having the Super Bowl up north, and they shouldn't be having it up north because it was bone-chilling cold. I don't know if he's aware that Minneapolis has a retractable dome.
Yeah, it's one of those dome stadiums. My dad hates them, but I think it's an interesting concept.
And in fact, that's one of the criteria. Stadiums where the average game day temperature is below 50 degrees Fahrenheit must have either a roof, a retractable dome, or, in one extreme situation in the last decade, a waiver by the NFL. There must be a minimum.
So that completely eliminates Gillette.
Well, 1 year, Super Bowl 48 at MetLife Stadium in New Jersey. It did not have a roof. It was an open-air stadium. It was still picked as the host stadium in an apparent waiver of the warm climate rule, with a contingency plan to reschedule the game in the event of heavy snowfall. I'm looking at Wikipedia right now, and this is what it says. MetLife Stadium over Sun Life generated controversy as the league requested for a roof to be added over Sun Life Stadium in the event of rainstorms in order to be considered for future Super Bowls. Okay, but Sun Life Stadium is in Florida, so I can see why they would ask for a dome there, because it rains a lot in Florida.
Yep.
So, back to our selection process for the Super Bowl arena. The host stadium must have a space for the game day designation, the game day experience, a large pregame entertainment area for the fans within a walking distance of the arena itself. The host city must have space for the NFL experience, an interactive football theme park which is operated the week prior to the bowl, An indoor venue for the event must have a minimum of 850,000 square feet, and an outdoor venue must have a minimum of 1 million square feet. Additionally, there must be space nearby for the media center and space for all other events involved in the Super Bowl week, including golf courses and bowling alleys, of all things.
What do golf courses and bowling alleys have to do with anything?
As far as the Super Bowl is concerned, I don't know. Maybe it's just a way for Roger Goodell to play games with Trump.
Why would Roger Goodell want to play a game with
prior
Trump?
to January 6th of 2021, you can see why that you can see he would have probably done that at some point. Why don't you get Ian to play some George Carlin for you, and you'll understand the golf joke.
Okay.
More criteria. The necessary infrastructure must be in place around the stadium and other Super Bowl facilities, including parking, security, electrical needs, media needs, communication needs, and transportation needs. There must be a minimum number of hotel spaces within 1 hour's drive of the arena, equaling 35% of the capacity, along with hotels for team. What?
How over the top are the requirements?
We're not done yet.
Oh
Along
my
with
God.
hotels for the teams, officials, press, and other dignitaries. For Super Bowl 39, the city of Jacksonville docked several luxury cruise liners at their port to act as temporary hotel space.
I remember that. I remember that Super Bowl.
Okay.
That was the year the Patriots won that one. That was the year before. That was right before snow. That was right in the middle of Snowmageddon.
I remember
that?
Snowmageddon very well.
But that was Snowmageddon 2.0 because 2010 and 2011 was a pretty bad winter too.
Oh, yes, because... Okay, so there must be practice space of equal and comparable quality for both teams within a 20-minute drive of the team hotels and a rehearsal space for all events within a reasonable distance to the stadium. The practice facilities must have one grass field and at least one field of the same surface as the whole stadium. Whether that's a grass field, whether that's a turf field, is determined on a case-by-case basis.
Okay, why do they need a grass field if it's a turf that they're going to play in a turf field in the Super Bowl? That doesn't make any sense.
I don't know.
Do they though?
Honestly, I can't tell you for sure. I don't play football. I never did.
Neither do I. I don't play any sports.
And finally, the stadium must have, as I said before, a minimum of 70,000 seats, including club and fixed suite seating during regular season operations. So, with Patriot Stadium having a seat shortage of 3,000, that alone eliminates Patriot Stadium as a host for the Super Bowl.
Well, technically it's called... Oh, I know why you're saying... Okay, I get it.
Although... No, actually...
Josh, you can edit that out, right?
What?
So I'm guessing you're saying Patriot Stadium because Gillette is copyright?
I'm saying Patriot Stadium not because of a trademark issue, but because, it's always going to be Patriot Stadium to me. So on that basis, I'm just going to let people roast me for it, and I am going to roast them right back on the next show. Assuming we do another show. Because I'm not sure that I'm going to do another show, because this is tougher than I thought.
Yep.
Oh, hang on, you're on speaker, hang on. Can you give me that yep again?
Yep.
So, now here's an interesting twist. So, the designated home team is the AFC team in an even-numbered year and an NFC team in an odd-numbered year. As luck would have it, that designation goes to the Buccaneers this year, who, remember, are staying at their home stadium, are staying for the Super Bowl instead of going to it. So this year, the designated home team is the actual home team.
That's how about that?
Well, I said on last week's show that this year's Super Bowl was a perfect storm of things that has never happened before, and I'll bet you $1 will never happen again.
Yeah.
You know
what I would have loved. You know what that would have been really interesting to see?
What?
Brady lose to the Patriots.
You know, it's funny you should say that, because if the Patriots if Cam Newton had been able to take the Patriots to an AFC championship this year, then we could have had Tom Brady and Bill Belichick in the Super Bowl together, and it being their first Super Bowl as adversaries instead of allies.
Although I know there's a complicated relationship between the two men behind the scenes.
Yeah, and that's precisely why he left the Patriots in the first place.
And I'm not going to speculate my thoughts on that because I don't think that's worth their time.
So do you know how the Super Bowl began?
Because the AFC and the NFC were separate leagues and they're playing against each other.
Well, the NFC and the AFC were originally the NFL and the AFL, and the two leagues had decided to merge together, and the merge was going to take quite some time. Like it took several years to complete, and so the first step was this interleague championship game, retroactively known as Super Bowl I.
Which was I can't remember if it was 60.
It was. I think it was 1950.
It was 67. 1967.
1960,
January 15th.
1967. No, it was 1966.
Nope, it was the 1966 season, but it was played in 1967. I just looked it up.
It was the only Super Bowl that was broadcast on two networks at the same time, not counting that game that was simulcast between NFC and the NFL network.
Yeah, so basically
simulcast on NBC and CBS. Each network brought its own camera crew, and a big fence had to be put up to keep the crews from getting into fistfights.
That's funny. Yeah. So the merger was complete in 1970.
And then, of course, the league brought their own film cameras on top of the videotape cameras to capture some of their own shots, because they were doing these for the newsreels. The ones you saw in the movie theaters. Well, what happened was CBS wiped its feed completely. There's nothing from the CBS broadcast exists.
Unless somebody recorded in their home, they haven't gotten it. Yeah.
Most of the NBC tapes exist in kinescopes, although much of the second quarter is missing. NFL Films filled up the second quarter, and a few other shots of other plays throughout the game where they had better angles than NBC did. So you're switching back and forth between the NBC cameras and the league's own cameras. And then they put that together with the radio broadcast of Westwood One. I think it was Westwood One. I may be wrong about that.
It was CBS Radio and NBC Radio. Westwood One didn't exist yet.
Okay, well...
And there's an interesting fact I want to point out about the TV broadcast for our New England listeners.
What?
The NBC, one of the NBC announcers was also one of the longtime Red Sox radio broadcasters, Kurt Gowdy.
Wait a second. Oh no. The tapes were completely wiped by NBC and largely by CBS, though a partial copy of the CBS feed was discovered. And then NFL Films put their own camera footage on top of the footage from CBS that was discovered, and combined that with audio from the NBC radio broadcast and put it together, and they aired it on television for the 49th anniversary of the contest. Why they didn't wait for the 50th year, I don't know. And then they put it together, and they actually put it out on a DVD.
Well, and also, it's an interesting fact, speaking of, this, it cost of a 30-second commercial for the original Super Bowl was $42,000.
Back then?
$42,000. That was it. Whereas, hold on.
No.
Yes, $42,000 for
yeah.
for the original commercial. Because remember, it wasn't a big thing yet. Nobody knew it was going to be yet.
Can you believe some of the commercials that they do for the Super Bowl?
I know, it's ridiculous.
What was your favorite Super Bowl commercial of all time?
Oh, I don't
know. There are people who watch the Super Bowl just for the commercial breaks, right? When I was a kid, if the Patriots weren't playing, I only watched it for the commercial breaks.
Wasn't there an episode of The Simpsons about that where Marge wanted to watch commercials and Homer wanted to watch the game, and they kept flipping back and forth?
I don't know. I never saw that. But I remember one year during the Super Bowl,
one of those shows.
They did a promo for the Daytona 500 because the Super Bowl was being done on Fox that year. And so they had Dale Jr. driving a car owned by Homer Simpson. Maggie beats them across the start-finish line, and you hear Dale Jr. as himself saying, "Don't!" And honestly, Dale Jr. did a great impersonation of Homer Simpson.
Yeah, that's pretty good. There were a lot of good commercials. And the cost of a commercial last year, $5.6 million.
Ouch.
Imagine paying $5.6 million for 30 seconds of your life.
Have you noticed how many football players have gone on to careers in television?
Like Michael Strahan covering the inauguration for ABC.
And, well, you also got Terry Crews. He became a prolific actor. He was on Everybody Hates Chris. He did The Millionaire Show. He did, I don't know, what else did Terry Crews do? Let's not forget, way back in the day, when Pat Sajak left the daytime version of NBC to host a late-night show that didn't quite make it off the ground.
That happened?
Yeah, the Pat Sajak Show on CBS. The idea was CBS wanted to have a late-night show to compete with The Tonight Show by the time Johnny Carson retired, but they wanted an established show by that time. And so that show, CBS had trouble getting people to watch that show because they made the mistake of allowing it to debut with Carson still on the air.
With who? Johnny Carson?
Yeah.
Well, wait. Terry Crews was in 5 episodes of The Newsroom with Aaron Sorkin's show.
But, well, when Pat Sajak left Wheel of Fortune, the daytime version, he still did the nightly syndicated show, but the daytime version...
Wait, there was a daytime version of Wheel of Fortune?
On NBC, and because Wheel of Fortune was originally created as a... There were 2 reasons for it. One, Merv Griffin had a clause in his contract with NBC that if they canceled one of his shows prematurely, they had to pick up his next pitch for whatever duration was left on his old show's contract. There were 2 years left on Jeopardy when NBC canceled it, and that's where Wheel of Fortune came from.
It's funny that was he on Jeopardy? The original Jeopardy?
Merv Griffin was the original. Merv Griffin created both Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy.
But Jeopardy was originally an NBC show in the 60s, 70s, and the 70s at one point.
Right, with Art Fleming as the host. And so, when that show got canceled 2 years prematurely, NBC was forced to pick up Wheel of Fortune to compensate for it. And so...
Hey, Josh, what about Pat Sajak's April Fool's Day joke in 1997?
Yep, he was on that episode of Jeopardy, and on that day's episode of Wheel of Fortune, Pat and Vanna played for charity, while Pat's wife Vanna Because, Pat's wife, Vanna, because everybody knows that Pat Sajak and Vanna White are married.
They're definitely. I don't think they are.
They're not. I was joking. Pat Sajak is married to a woman named Leslie. And she did the puzzle board when Pat and Vanna played for charity.
Okay,
and
you know
guess who was
really rated on
and
Pat
guess who
Sajak?
and guess who was at the wheel? Alex Trebek.
You don't know who's really rated about Pat Sajak?
What?
He wrote for a conservative news magazine for in 2010.
The guy that came before Pat Sajak?
No, Pat Sajak actually wrote articles in conservative news magazine National Review.
Oh, yeah, I heard about that. And you know something? Pat Sajak, unlike his predecessor Chuck Woolery, who was the original host of Wheel of Fortune, he keeps his conservatism in check.
Who's Chuck Woolery? What's
Chuck
he doing
Woolery
these
is
days?
a famous game show host. He's done Love Connection. He's done Greed on Fox. He did Lingo on GSN. But his first game show ever was Wheel of Fortune. He was the original host. Like, he did the first pilot, and Ed Burns did the second and third pilots. But Ed Burns was drunk at the taping, and so, not surprisingly, Griffin picked Woolery over Burns. But what's ironic about that is that during some tapings of Wheel of Fortune, Pat and Vanna would go to this restaurant across the street for a 3-martini lunch and come back to do the Thursday and Friday show, and they would tape the Thursday and Friday show, and they were fucking drunk.
Yeah, Pat and Vanna are definitely like BFFs.
But the connection to football for Wheel of Fortune, when Pat Sajak left the daytime version on NBC, he was replaced by Rolf Benerska, the former place kicker of the San Diego Chargers.
Interesting.
Yep. Because Rolf Benerska was one of the first ones to do it. I think he was the first to do it, but he was definitely one of the first. Okay. And now just to kind of wind up the show a little bit. Do you remember when we were doing Mid-Fitchburg Weekend? We did this top 10 list a la David Letterman. And the category was top 10 rejected sports team names.
Oh no. Oh no.
Oh yeah. Well, I have the tape. Here it is. Are you ready for this one?
Yes.
This is the top 10 rejected NFL team names.
Alrighty, here we go. Number 10.
The Boston Redcoats. The British are coming. The British are coming.
Top 10 rejected NFL team names. Number 9.
The Alaska Gnomes.
Number 8.
The Springfield Simpsons.
Da 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 da.
With general manager Matt Greening.
Number 7.
Number 7, the Orlando Mice.
You don't get that joke, do ya?
It has to do with Mickey Mouse, the
There
general
you go,
manager.
there you go.
The general manager, duh.
Number 6.
The Las Vegas Prostitutes. Well then.
Oh. Number 5.
Well, we'll now see where they're getting their money. The Carson City Pimps.
Okay, number 4.
The Mississippi.
A bench-clearing brawl amongst the unsustained.
Okay, and
Number 3. All right, number 3.
Tacoma Truckers.
Oh. No, looks like
I'm pretty sure
Toyota's gonna move to Washington State. Number 2.
Utah. Run by Mitt Romney.
Okay.
And with no smoking allowed.
Actually, I think that's over the line.
No smoking allowed.
And the number 1 rejected NFL team name.
The Albuquerque Bugs.
We are out of time for tonight. Ben, thank you for joining us here on the Money Stop. We'll hear from you again later on this season. I may be back next week, I may not.
Okay, good night.